Creative. Eric Brines over here, the founder. And yeah, I am a little jazzed up today. I got the suit on, because there's a reason why. We are going to talk about the main topic of today for Sunday, this live video is going to be the art of the deal, simple sales tips, and how to win over your clients. We're going to go over that. So, just to recap a little bit, and we'll go into about 6 or 7 topics talking about sales and why is it important for video production business or really any business for that matter. So um, just to give a little recap, it has been pretty much like a month since I've done a live video. I know before I spoke about, what, I think I'm going to try to do these live videos more often, but you know what? It is busy season here in New York. The winter is almost done, but it's not quite done. That's why I'm wearing a turtleneck because we're just not quite there yet. It's still a little bit chilly, but basically business has picked up since the last time that I talked about some very daunting and not despair, but everyone has been dealing with the economy and dealing with the weather really. So that's done. Spring is here, everyone. We are trying to make some money, and I've just been busy this past month. That I think what I'm probably going to do when it comes to these lives is that I don't want to set expectations. I'm going to do them bi-weekly or weekly. They're just going to come to me, and that's just what's going to happen. All right. So the element of surprise is always a good idea when it comes to business sometimes. So, um, with that in mind, I will try to do these at least once a month so that I can be able to get more content. Because what I have realized doing these live videos with the phone is really it goes directly into YouTube, and that way that the way it's shot right now and framed, I'm clipping these out on my short little reels that are going up on Instagram, and it is saving me a lot of time. So if you guys are getting into like the YouTube, content, your talking head kind of thing, this is a perfect way to do it. So, without further ado, we're going to go into that. I'll talk about some, new updates on my end, and with what's going on with Urban Creative at the end of the video. So, stay tuned for that if you guys want to stick around for that. But thanks for just starting off. So, anyhow, let's talk about sales. Let's talk about sales really because I think as a creative, in me growing up as a creative, I always kind of had this disdain for sales. Even the name of it, the word of it just gives me the ick, because I always felt that way, and I think a lot of times creatives feel that way a lot, in the beginning, as you're starting off as a creative, because you feel like it's just so different. You're not trying to sell anyone on your talent. Like, speaking of which, my homie Chris Dax, were in his studio. That's all his art there. So if you asked him to sell something, he would probably be like, no, man, the art should just speak for itself. And that's what's going to sell someone or make someone buy my painting. But guess what? Not saying for his paintings, but I'm just saying in general, creatives have to know how to be good at sales, because at the end of the day, if you're passionate about your creativity or whatever your creative work is, um, you need to sell it. You need to be passionate about it, right? You're already passionate about it. You're pretty skilled at it. So if you're skilled at it, then it should be easy for you to sell it, and it doesn't feel like sales. I guess that's what I'm saying. So I guess what I mean by that is as I got older, I started to realize the importance of being really good at sales, doing some subconscious things that really just kind of get you in front of the right clients that are happy and they're excited to work with you. And that's kind of really what it is. I honestly think, even for me, I still have a struggle with trying to say that I'm really good at sales. We're gonna hit Q3 targets with this many leads and all that, and try to get very finite with the numbers and all that. I don't try to approach it that way, but I will say that I do have gotten better at winning my clients over right off in the beginning on that first meeting, whether it's in person or on a phone call or a video chat, which we're kind of doing right now, you know what I mean? So before I get into the six sort of topics, I'll try to make this quick, but I talk. Let's talk about something just very important that's right off the bat, which you can see visually right now, right? Let's talk about appearance. And I know with a lot of creatives, even if you're on a video chat, it's very easy or, just simple for you to just not get dressed up for the first meeting. You might be having your hoodie on and like your hair's not that combed or whatever. You have a baseball cap on because you're thinking like, hey, well, when I do video shoots or when I shoot photography, I'm not super dressed up and stuff. So this is kind of how I'm going to be presented, kind of casual, obviously not too casual, but again, I think appearance is everything. And even if you're going into a meeting knowing that the client is not super like that professional, coming in, I'm telling you, when you come in with a blazer, you know what I'm saying? Like this, you got that velvet joint. I'm telling you, that velvet joint is like, you're going to make that sale, for women and men, by the way. So I noticed that if I just roll in with a blazer, in-person meetings, I usually win that over really well because clients will look at it like, wow, he really took his time to, show that he's serious about this job, serious about this gig that he's up for, and it just brings that level of confidence really for me too. You know what I'm saying? Like I just get a little more confident when I got this blazer on. You know what I'm saying? Or any blazer, I guess, in that matter. I mean, if it's a video chat, and I'm doing like a Google Meet or a Zoom or something, yeah, I'll probably just do like a polo shirt or something like that, or the quarter zips. That's kind of a thing right now. That's what we people do nowadays. So that's cool. That works as well. So I just want to say that in the mindset. So with that in mind, I'll keep the jacket on for a little bit longer, but I'm telling you, I'm getting hot in this motherfucker. So, but also too, think about it. Approach, body language. That's a big thing. So, a lot of, creatives, I ain't saying no names, but a lot of people are very introverted. They're very, I'm just like a quiet kind of creative person. And again, that's cool and all, but we're in myself, I'm here in New York, based in New York City, and coming across with a little bit of bravado, a little bit of confidence. Something that just shows that you're carrying yourself with authority, I guess you can say. Even the way I'm approaching you right now, it doesn't feel like, oh man, he kind of knows what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? So even with the walk, like a lot of times I'll see my creative people and they come off like, oh, well, I'm about to meet the CEO of this startup and I feel intimidated and stuff like that. But I don't think you should go in with that approach. So I do see a lot of people, they try to come in and, they're just a little timid, like, oh, well, hey, hello, how are you? Oh, nice to meet you and stuff like that. And just being like a little bit more timid and stuff like that. But I don't think you roll in that way. I think you should roll in with something like this. You got to get the power walk and you just go up there and you're just like, hey, my name's Eric Baranez. I'm the founder of Urban Creative. I do video production based here in New York City. I do testimonials, event videography. I shot in the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and Javits Center, and all these other places across New York. So nice to meet you. And all right, let's sit down. Okay, let's sit down, and kind of just establish that positioning that it's a lot about body language. It is a lot about body language and how you kind of approach it. So anyhow, that's just the physical appearance. So let's just go off of there. I need to take off this jacket because I tell you what, I'm getting a little bit hot here. It's getting hot here when I'm moving around. So anyhow, let's go into it. This is something just to even think about is that most freelancers lose the job before they even send the proposal. So that's why it is kind of big on how to sell yourself with this. Sorry, I'm mic'd up here and it's going to be a little wrinkled and a little weird, but I do think the audio is still good. So let me know if it's not in the comments, guys. Throw a little bit of a chat there if that's the case. I got my laptop over here. So we're going to go into topic one. And this is something that's very interesting. This is an old movie. And my oldest brother, who is a sales director of his own company, and this guy can sell water to a well. I'm telling you. So like he's just a master at sales. My brother Nate, and this happened about I don't know about 15 years ago or so. He showed me this video, me and my other brother, one time when we were just visiting him, and it is Glenn Ross, the movie. Look it up. I think it's early 90s, maybe late 80s, but Alec Baldwin has this monologue. Really, the movie's not that great. I'll tell you that right now. But this monologue is about 7 minutes long. Look it up on YouTube. Baldwin, Glenn Ross monologue. Just look it up. I'm telling you. This speech that he does. So basically, it was like these group of guys that were struggling being auto dealership salespeople. So an auto dealership sales guys. They're all here. Al Pacino's in the movie and everything like that. There are actually some big names tied to the movie, but the movie wasn't that entertaining other than just this one scene because of the way Alec Baldwin came in there. So they're all like here at this meeting. They're in this conference, in this like office setting or whatever. They're all sitting down. It was an emergency meeting that their boss told them to go to. And basically, Alec Baldwin, they don't even know what's going on. They're just like, all right, sales is horrible. What are we doing here? This meeting late at night. And then Alec Baldwin just shows up, man. And he's from a different dealership, but he is a boss, and basically he just owns the room, goes into it kind of the way that I just walked up to you guys right now, with authority, with the jacket, with the watch, with everything, and just delivers this straight monologue about being a good salesperson, how to get leads, how to deliver. And one of the biggest things that he says, and is a mantra that I always even have to this day when it comes to sales or even business or even just life in general, it's called the acronym ABC, which means always be closing. Which in the movie you will see that he writes it up on the chalk, or on the chalkboard, and it's just an amazing scene where really it's about uh like at first when I watched it, I was like, wow, it's pretty entertaining. But like my brother Nate really drilled it in my head. He was like, no, you have to really watch this video and depict it word by word, memorize it, play it once a week, play every day. It's like a motivational speech, to be honest with you. So it's really about like the psychology and the urgency and the authority that he's bringing across. You know what I mean? So when you see other figures that know how to kind of have that presence about them, that they feel like they're so sure of themselves, even if they aren't, like they can just have that presence, and it really comes across in his performance and as a character, and you could just tell he's a winner. You know what I mean? Like he's a winner. He's not a loser, and he's coming in there to just kill it when it comes to sales. So, like for me, did my I did my just due and just kept watching it and watching it just for entertainment purposes at first. But then I started to realize like there's a whole bunch of gems in there that really goes into like generating business and landing those deals and closing those deals. So my homework assignment to you guys is for the viewers that are watching, if you haven't heard of the movie, you don't know what I'm talking about, watch it once a week every time right before you do a pitch, right before your meeting, your call, your phone call, or your video meet, your Google Meet, or even if it's a meeting in person. Watch the video right before you go on that meeting. Trust me, is going to make you feel motivated to close that deal. So that's step one, I think. Step one. So then the second one, let me just check down here. Sorry, guys, I'm just over here on my laptop. Step two, or tip number two, I would say is make sure that you're before the meeting that you're researching your client and the company before every meeting. I see that a lot of times where, you know, you would like not just creatives, but people will go into like a meeting with someone, and you might know the name of the company. You know, obviously the name of the person you're going to meet, whether it's like an HR person or a lot of times with videographers, it's like I'm meeting with like the event coordinator or somebody like that. So sometimes it's, it might be the CEO, but it also will probably be somebody that kind of works with, setting that up, or the marketing manager, I guess you can say. So what I'm saying about that is that sometimes people go into these meetings thinking like, well, I'm going to show up to the meeting and they're going to let me know about their company. They're going to let me know what they're doing and what they're about and everything. So I don't really need to like prepare for anything. We're going to just talk. But I think that's totally the wrong way to approach it, because if you go in there and you do a little bit of research, it really goes a long way, and it shows that you care about what the fuck that they do. You know what I mean? And it makes them feel important that you actually took the extra time to, research a company. And it could be a totally different industry that, like, as a creative, like a photographer or videographer, that you don't, that's not your world, but you're covering, maybe an event, or you're about to interview like the whole team for, HR videos and stuff like that. So I totally recommend, and I know this isn't usually a good thing to do, is stalk people on social media. But when it comes to doing this, yes, you should. You should be stalking them on LinkedIn. You probably will see them on LinkedIn, so that's totally where you will get the right information from. But sometimes you got to go to, Instagram. Sometimes you got to go to Facebook if that's the case, And then after that, I would check out their company, check out, what's their, newest press releases, or even like what the company has been posting on social media. That's pretty good to see what they're up to speed on. As far as videographer, I always check their YouTube page to see how bad it is, and that's good because then you can already go in there prepped, knowing that you're going to upsell them on certain things, and even just a strategy on that. So I'll even say just a specific story. So I actually had a meeting last week, which I can't get in too much detail because it's still pending. But the meeting went really well because I did my due diligence and I did some research on the company where, for me, I like to approach it where, and I was going to meet the CEO, and he's overseas, and he has this company that's like a electric motorbikes and stuff like that. And he's in a certain area. And so for me, like, I like to come across like that I can bring value by bringing up like suggestions of like, hey, have you ever thought of this? You ever thought of that? And they, you don't want to upstage them, obviously, but you want to bring up something that like shows that, wow, you actually did do your research on this. So he's basically in this one country and he's doing really well there. But there's a country right next to it that like they would have a high demand for bikes. You know what I'm saying? So when I first started the meeting, I just brought up to him like, hey, have you guys ever thought about, I'm surprised you guys ain't over here at this country over there. Um, and he was just like, you know what? We have been trying to get over into that market, but the bike industry and selling these electric vehicles, it's all like that country. It's all owned by kind of like families, like crime families and stuff like that. So there's kind of like a racket over there. But it was really cool because I was able to just like lessen his stance and being a little bit standoffish, and it made him feel a lot more comfortable because we just had like this kind of thing where I was like, oh really, that's crazy, like, well, what do you mean, and I was just kind of like leading in more into it because I wanted to learn more of like what he meant about this story, and it seemed like a crazy story. So he went into it for a little while and it was pretty funny, and needless to say, you know things should be rolling pretty good with that. That should stay tuned for it, but the meeting went really well and I think that worked out. So we'll go to number three. Number three is pretty interesting because you guys may have not have known, but in my earlier years in New York, I was actually a stand-up comedian. Just kind of on the side, but I was doing it for a couple of years, doing stand-up and performing jokes. So um, it was pretty fun, and I did do it for like 2 or 3 years, and then I realized like, wow, I would have to put in probably 100,000 hours to make sure this would be successful. So, and I had a day job at the time, so it was just a thing that I did for fun. But I learned a lot. So I did perform at different stages and everything like that. It helped me out with a lot with public speaking, which is working out right now pretty good, and talking to random people. So, what I would say though is that one of the best things to do in the beginning of your first meeting, or really any meeting that you're having that you're trying to sell to a client, is land a joke early. Like if you're able to land a good joke early in the meeting, it just really like makes everyone at ease. You know what I'm saying? So, the thing is like people like if you land a good ass joke and you keep it light, you could be able to like have this confidence because like nervous people don't like know how to joke around like that. So it really just kind of like eases the burden of the meeting being so like stiff and just going over the scope of work and all that and feels like interviewy or whatever. So let me give you an example. So, what I did specifically one time, I had this client that I landed, but it was the first time that I had a Google Meet with them. And what I try to do is like I try to feel out how, and it helps with me doing comedy back in the day. Is that it helps to feel it out, feel people out because certain you could do jokes, right? But you can't. You got to be careful with jokes because if you say something that might come off offensive, it's kind of bad, So, in the way the world is now, people get offended pretty easily. So you have to know. Basically, the same way with stand-up comedy, you have to read the room. You have to read the room. So, with this particular meeting that I took with this guy, um, he had this convention that was coming up and stuff. And first time I talked to him, we kind of talked on Upwork. Actually, it was an Upwork lead, and we set up the meeting with the Google Meet. So what ended up happening was, I usually try to go with from the beginning. I'll always try to ask like the client, like right off the back, like, "Oh yeah, hey, where are you originally from? Where are you originally from?" Because at least that gives you a basis of where you can maybe take a joke somewhere. If they're from Vegas, right? Oh, I'm actually originally from Vegas. You can, start talking about, yeah, that had to have been interesting. Yo, living in Vegas, what was that about? Being surrounded by casinos. But for him in particular, so he was a New Yorker. So he was like, yo, I'm a native New Yorker. And he had the accent and everything. So it was interesting because as soon as he told me that he was a native New Yorker, I was just like, oh, okay. I knew that I could bullshit with them a little bit more, like I knew that I could say some things that, could be a little bit like someone would get offended, but if they're from Wyoming or something like that, I don't want to like knock Wyoming. I mean, maybe they are like, you could just say some racy stuff or whatever, but anyhow, he was a New Yorker. He had the accent. He was kind of a go-getter. So I knew I could just bullshit with him. So I went ahead and said something like, "Oh yeah, okay, you're from a New York." So basically, I was like, "Hey, where are you from?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm a New Yorker, man, born and raised here." I'm like, "Oh wow, bro, like, oh that's crazy, man. You're kind of rare here, man. You're like a unicorn and stuff like that." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm from Ohio originally." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then I was like, well, I've been here for 10 years though, so I guess you could say I'm a New Yorker. And, of course I had to like, of course, in order to be a New Yorker, 10 years is kind of like that bid, 10-year bid that you could be a New Yorker. But also, I stabbed a homeless person as well, and that kind of got me in, right? And like he just started laughing his ass off, and he was just like, "Man, that's funny, dude. Yeah, I mean, you could, yeah, if you did stab a homeless person, yeah, man, I guess that would get you into the New Yorker status, like, because that's a coveted thing that New Yorkers don't want to really say that you're a New Yorker unless you're born and raised there. So obviously, I didn't stab a homeless person, guys. I know that you're worried about that homeless person next to your corner. Like, did Eric kind of, just to get it, the New York status? No, I didn't. All right. So it was just a joke, just so everyone knows. But it was a funny one. And he just let his guard down. And I could tell that he was just like entertained with what I was saying. And we actually just we skipped the like corporate kind of like very, stiff talk because he was like in the dental industry and stuff like that. We were just able to like kind of bullshit like we're talking right now, and like I feel those conversations go way much better. So he let his guard down, and it was just like great because at that point I kind of knew like, oh yeah, I got him. You know what I'm saying? Like so. Anyhow, tip number three, make sure you try to lead with a joke. It doesn't have to be like a super complex joke, just something simple to get them kind of laughing. So, that's always a good idea. So, we'll go into tip number four. So, this is actually a very subtle, subconscious thing that I noticed the more that I did it, the better results that I got. So, I'll say this quote here that I got to read it out a little bit. So, Dale Carnegie said in 1936, and it still works, a person's name is the sweetest sound to them. And I totally believe that. And what I mean by that is using a client's first name deliberately and often really makes them feel appreciated. It makes them feel heard and it makes them feel like they're just important, Just think about it, like if someone just kept saying like your name a few times throughout the meeting, you feel like, okay, all right, he's kind of paying attention to what I'm saying, So I always try to I try to go through. I mean, I'm not saying it every single time I like make a response, like, thanks, Dale. All right, Dale. All right, Dale. So I wouldn't do that. But what I would do is try to, right from the beginning, say, hey, George, how are you doing, man? You good? Okay. All right. So, yeah, let's get this meeting started, man. So, where you from, George? Where you from? Oh, okay. Oh, you're from there. Yeah, you're from Wyoming. I heard that they don't really take jokes that good, Like, is that true or not? I don't know if it is. I feel like you're good at that. And it's just kind of like deliberately repeating his name. And even at the end, I'll say, like, thank you so much, George, for your time. I appreciate it. I'm going to follow up with you via email right after this meeting and give you some of the list of stuff that I have. I'll give you some extra links to my portfolio of other videos that I've done that are not on my portfolio, something like that. So, anyhow, what I'm just trying to drill down here, guys, is use names and use it often, and even use it in texts. Use it in text. Use it in emails. I know a lot of times people want to just casually like write out texts where they're not being too, it's like one or two or three word answers, But like I think if you just be a little bit more descriptive and you just say their name, like write in on text, like, hey, Kara, how are you? How you been? Like, how's your weekend been? Was it good? Like, just stuff like that really makes people feel special, And I think that's something that you guys should just incorporate more and more. And trust me, it will deliver like a better customer relationships going forward. So, yeah. So let's keep on going. Let's keep on going, guys. So, this is a big one, oh yeah, my guy just commented here. Yo, DJ, how are you? He said, I definitely been practicing using people's name more, especially if we just met. Yes, exactly, bro. That's what I'm saying is like using the names, use it in the beginning, use it at the end. And, if you can do it somewhere in the middle, that's fine. Don't go overboard. But again, just saying the name, it is like music to their ears. It's music to my ears. Anytime someone says Eric a couple times, I'm like, I am in love with you. But anyhow, so let's go to tip number five. We're trying to wrap this up. So this is a big thing that no one does nowadays, right? No one wants to reply back because they don't want to be cringe and I don't want to like look like I'm needy or whatever like that. But I want you to understand that with clients, when you are responsive, this is a hot take. Clients aren't always picking the best reel or the best videographer or the best editor. They're picking the person that made them feel taken care of first. So that means before you even land the job, replying fast is your first deliverable. Do you get what I'm saying? That is your first deliverable because you've already established communication. They're interested in what you're doing because they looked at your portfolio and they think it's really good. So they're already interested. So your first deliverable is not actually even the video edit or you showing up to shoot that video. Your first deliverable is to reply back fast. It's the same way that you would want to get that project out, that video edit out ASAP so that impresses them. So think of that way. If your mindset is switched that way, trust me, it is going to land you clients so much more. And what I'm trying to give you guys in the sense that I have a rule that whether it's an email, whether it's a text message, if they call me, but I was in the subway, reply back within an hour. Trust me on that is that if you reply back in an hour, within an hour, you're going to get so much better results when it comes to not only landing the client, but also like, uh, having a good client relationship, of course. So like it really just goes a long way. And it doesn't take long to do. All you got to do is just shoot a text back. I can't count how many times I've worked with other freelancers or just other people that are into that I'm working with team wise, and they just don't reply back for like hours, like or even 24 hours. They're just like, all right, then they reply back and don't even have an apology or anything. It, like that's just their turnaround time just to reply back, and I'm like, wow, this is like wild to me. So this view really applies to like follow-ups and everything like that, guys. Like I think if you reply within the hour, not like EOD, and then I'm just gonna do it all at the end of the day. I know like sometimes people structure it that way, but I don't think that's the way to do it. Like, oh, I got all these meetings and stuff. I can't hurry up and reply to this email. Like, come on, like you can reply to it. Just hurry up, do it. Use ChatGPT. I don't care, but just reply back because even when you're in the industry and you understand this, is that if you're building that relationship more with a client and you're doing repeat work with them, they actually aren't that stressed about deadlines, like they are. Most of the time clients are, and some clients are pushy about deadlines. But what I mean by that is a client will be more happy to keep working with you if you're a fast replier when it comes to just communication within the hour, but you are maybe a little bit flexible, or all right, I was going to get that video for you on Tuesday, but I got it to you on Wednesday. They will be kind of a little bit more like, okay, you know what, that's cool. No, I get it, you get busy, especially with the freelancers like world. Like we get a little bit of I guess flexibility when it comes to clients. Like it's not like you're working full time and it's like major demands with, deadlines and stuff like that. So that's just a little bit of a pro tip is like if you're responsive within the hour, like it actually gives you a better chance to be more like flexible with deadlines and stuff like that. So yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. So I think that's good. Good thing, DJ. Yeah, straight up, bro. So anyhow, let's go to number 6, and this is sort of the last one. Let's see if I can wrap this up. But number 6 is a little controversial too. A lot of times I'll work with freelancers, and I might be hiring them on as like a second videographer or a photographer. And I have the client that I'm trying to manage, and basically the event or something set up in place, and I'm just trying to see if they're available and seeing what their rate is given after I give them the scope of work, right? I give them all the details. I create a brief of like what the client needs. But I get a lot of my freelancer friends, they'll just like come to me and they're like, well, do you know the budget? Can you tell me what the budget is from the client? Or could you ask the budget for the client? I'm not gonna ask the budget. I'm not gonna ask the client for the budget. I'm sorry. Like it's just not for me personally. I just feel like uncomfortable when you're trying to ask the client for a budget because to me, I feel like when you ask what's your budget, it immediately puts you into like a subservient like position. And it kind of like comes off like you're not like confident in what you do or what you should quote it at. And you're kind of like just trying to fish them for the right answer that they don't know what that price should Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know the price of that, what that should be. You get what I'm saying? So I'll kind of give you an analogy that's a little bit better, which I just kind of rambled there. But imagine if you went to, like you had a leak in your toilet and you had to go, work with a plumber, and you called a plumbing company and you called a couple of them. A couple of them gave you some direct pricing and you're like, okay, cool. All right, that one's a little high and this one's a little low. But then you went to this one and they come back to you and they're like, okay, so that's, and you gave them all the details of the broken, leaky toilet, and they're come back to you and they're like, "Well, what's your budget? What's your budget range? Can you just tell me your range? Then I can give you a price." What the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, so like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you quote it like that? At least for me, I don't think that's the best way to take it. And I think the better way to quote your pricing is do it where you feel confident, and by this time you should know what kind of the half day rate, the hourly rate, and the full day rate is for your services. And so you should know the range that you can do, and it's obviously it's always based off of what type of client are you working with? If it's a startup, maybe it's a little bit more lean, or if it's just like a guy that's just an influencer that's trying to get some videos done. Like, obviously, you need to like gauge that, read the room. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to do that. But if it's a bigger company that's got over 1,000 employees, then you can price higher. But you need to just be confident in what that price is and make a decision. But what I will say that will help you out, because I think when people want to do that budget range, they want that client to come back and give them a number that's high. And that way they can be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to just like price it high and just try to get the most out of it. And it's just not the way I roll. And I always have clients that continue to work with me because I feel like they don't feel like I'm doing the plumber story that I just told you. So what I will say though is the best way to do it is make sure you have a firm price on what it is, and then just have add-ons. Have add-ons to your services that you can be able to show them those add-ons that they can decide to add on extra services. So, for example, if I'm going to do videography, I'll give them hypothetical scenarios like, well, I also do video editing, so I can do a 2 to 3 minute highlight video for this price. I can do these short form reels for this price. That's a little bit lower. And I just provide other services that they can add on. And I would say over half of the clients usually add on something, and they might not add on for that project, but they'll add it on for later on. And it just feels a lot more flexible when you have like an a la carte kind of add on quote system and pricing. Some other people do packages, and that's kind of good too, where you always want to have like a bronze, silver, and gold package. And the bronze might be like a one camera thing, and then the silver would be two cameras, and then the platinum package, or that could be like three cameras or whatever. So that's something that people can do as well. I don't really go that way. I kind of just go more of like an add-on situation. So either way, just don't ask for a budget. I don't know. If there's one thing that's cringeworthy, I think that's it. So, yeah, I guess that's about it, guys. I know this video runs a little long. I'll try to wrap up kind of a few things, personal updates, just on my end. How is New York? How's the videography going? Is it staying busy with all this AI economy, the war? Basically every other freaking thing that's making the sky fall. Yes, I am being busy just as much as I was last year around this time, so I feel pretty good about it. I had a really cool video shoot with Albert Couture at the New York Stock Exchange with, you guys might know him, Peter Tuchman, who is the Einstein of Wall Street. So that was pretty dope. Um, Actually, I was able to get referred to Albert from a previous video shoot did with another friend of his. And even with that video shoot, I didn't do so great at that video, to be honest with you. But my relationship with that guy he was able to give me a good recommendation because he knows, like, I know how to present myself and I'm a professional person. So there you go. Like, again, it's not always about the quality, it's about how the relationships are built with a lot of people. So that was a cool video to work on. And I actually shot with a couple weeks later with the actress, if you guys might know, uh, Naturi Naughton, which I might be fumbling that name, but she was the wife of Ghost on Power, the Power series that 50 Cent does on Star Network. And she was just like, I didn't even realize like she was going to show up. I was just at this event as a second videographer. Next thing you know, they're like, yeah, we got to go downstairs and cover somebody coming out of a car. And I'm like, what's going on? She pops out. I knew exactly who she was because I watched the series and it's pretty good. And you know what? She was just a sweetheart. She was super cool, super down to earth. I was able to mic her up and just, talk to her for a little bit and joke around with her. So, it's New York, and it's pretty cool that you can just be able to run into anybody at any given time. So that's nice. And yeah, just a little bit of an update with Blue Tarps, the documentary, guys. I have a link at the bottom about the documentary that's coming out right now. I'm currently on Film Freeway. I am submitting to film festivals. So right now it's currently in the film festival circuit. Stay tuned for that. There's going to be a lot more updates. I have a few big bold ideas when it comes to blue tarps, along with my partner, really Chris Dax, on that. So I'll let you guys know on that. And I think that wraps it up. I wanted to do some AI stuff, but I don't want to get too long into this video. So I think maybe the next video, actually, that's actually a good idea. I think the next live I'll do is I'm going to do like simple AI things that I've done in like the past like couple months. I'm switching over to Claude because Claude has co-work. That's an AI kind of thing that can start to do bot and do tasks. So that's coming up. But yeah, I think I'm gonna need to do a separate video for it. But needless to say, everyone, we are not too late to too late to be in competition. I guess not late to the race. I guess what I'm trying to say for AI. 90% of people aren't using AI the right way, including myself. So if you just try to learn something new once a week, it's a really good idea. So I'll leave it at that. I think that wraps up, guys. I think I've been talking too long. Thanks for coming to my live, my second one that I'm kind of doing. This talking head with the phone kind of thing. The second one that I did live. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel. Like, leave some more comments. I appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time. And again, remember these sales tips. If you do these 6 sales tips that I mentioned and you try to reinforce this with your business, trust me, you will be able to generate a lot more. You'll land a lot more deals and you'll keep a lot more clients. So that's what it matters. Stay tuned for 2026. I will see you guys soon and we'll see you later. Ciao.